Sometimes you're not fully honest with them. You know, if I showed them this picture, I don't think they would get it or understand, and they would say, "Oh, that mark on the wall, you know, that looks ugly." Or this next one is from Spookorama at Dino's in Coney Island. You know, this is showing the tricks. This is pulling aside the curtain in the Land of Oz. You know, this is a dark ride where you get into a coach and it leads you around a predetermined track. But I love that, you know, and I love also the idea that I've photographed something in this picture that is also sort of unphotographable, which is sound, or, you know, the sound effects. And just also a note that this picture reminds me of about influences. I mentioned Versailles earlier. Another influence is Deanne Arbus. And I made pictures at Spookorama in '04, I think, and '05. And then I was flipping through the Revelations book, and there is a square picture of, I don't know which haunted house it's from, but it's basically a dark ride. Whether it's Spookorama or not, I don't know. But a dark ride at Coney Island taken with flash that shows all the seams and shows all the edges and all the things that you're not supposed to see. And I must have seen that picture before, but I didn't consciously know it. And maybe that was in my brain somewhere, and that's the whole reason why I set out on this haunted house project that I devoted myself to. So I kind of love how things can kind of get ingrained in you and you don't even realize it. I think it's Robert Frost. There's a quote about being an artist is different from being an academic. And one of the ways is that you're not accountable for a thesis exactly, or for defining something, but what you do is you pass through the world and you pick up nettles from brush as you walk, and you don't even realize you're doing it, but it's there, and they stick with you. And then sometimes they fall away, and sometimes they stay with you, and you don't even realize it. So I like to think that that's what happened in the case of this picture, but even the whole haunted house project. This is the drug closet at the hospital at Governor's Island. It's hard to read, but it says barbiturates and/or amphetamines at the top. Even though this is not, this one's not like the others, but it refers to escapism. It refers to another state of mind. But this closet is just so, barren, and I know there's a really good word here, and I'm not thinking of it. But see, I'm not a writer. That's why I can't think of the word. Anyway, and this also gives you a clue to one of my interests, and one of the reasons why this idea of escaping reality even interests me is that projects I've done in the past have related to drug addiction and alcoholism. So all of that is sort of feeding into this work as well. And actually, I failed to mention that when I first started the night project in graduate school, the very first interior place I went were bars. And I didn't photograph people. I photographed the glasses, the carved booths, the bar rag, the jukebox, etc. This is obviously not in a bar, although I guess I'd like to go to that bar. This is in a wax museum in Kissimmee, Florida. Actually, Florida as a whole state was another one of these mini projects that I did. The reason why I didn't have a book about Florida and a book about, bars and a book about haunted houses, although the idea is sort of tempting, I think it's too literal. I really like the idea of sort of mixing all of these otherwise disparate things that are related, mixing them up and having them sort of tell some sort of narrative. And I'm not trying to create a narrative where, you know, you walk into the drug closet and you take barbiturates and then you have a trip where you know, whatever, you see E.T. I mean, it's not literal like that, but I hope that it's sort of like some kind of a poetic narrative. You know, another influence is Walker Evans, who is famous for the phrase lyric documentary. And my work is very deadpan, very straightforward. There are no tricks. It's analog photography on film. I don't move things around. I only add light if I need to. Like, actually, in this photograph, I added a flash because otherwise it was almost pitch black. And I wanted to illuminate these strings that hang down in Spookorama so that as you exit, it tickles you and you think it's spider webs. But everything's very straightforward, deadpan, straight photography, but it is not documentary. I'm not trying to tell the truth, whatever that is, about any of these places. It's just sort of me out in the world collecting things, collecting little jewels and sort of bringing them back. And creating this sort of oddball collection that sort of works together to mean something. I'm going to take a sip of water. You can't see in the slide, and it's hard in the book, you have to really look, but the title of this print on the wall is Happy Childhood. For the most part, I think my work is American. It's about America. I'm an American photographer. There are just maybe one or two pictures in this book that are not from the U.S. This is one of them. This was taken in '07 in Hungary, where I was for about a month on an artist residency. This was a crazy circus. I don't think they were Hungarian. I think they were from another country in Eastern Europe. But I can't believe there were three of us just running around with our cameras. And as long as we didn't photograph them, they just didn't care. I think there was a communication issue, so they decided just to let it happen. But it was definitely one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. They had a ferret tied up to a rope in the grass for no reason. I don't know what he did in the act. That's another thing I love about being a photographer is getting to, you know, there's an Arbus quote about her favorite thing is going where she's never been, which I think is great. And a photographer, you know, you have a reason. You have this like excuse to poke around people's houses, their private business. It really gives you entree into other worlds, which is pretty great. This is another earlier picture, probably '99. This picture, like the Happy Childhood one, is actually close to home. The Happy Childhood and this one were in my grandmother's house. This was my sister's graduation party. I mentioned earlier that I also do some editorial work for magazines. And this picture was actually made while I was on assignment. Taking these assignments allows me to go places for free, basically. Free trips and also free access. This is a nightclub in South Beach. And there's no reason why I would have been in this nightclub. And there's also no reason why, had I even wanted to go in, that they would let me. But I happened to be working on a story for Wallpaper magazine about Miami, and this nightclub was one of the places we were photographing. And even though I had a job to do and there was a whole crew and everything, I just made a beeline for this DJ booth. And because I know what's important, and I'm always looking out for number one, and I made sure that